Good morning,
So,
everyone.
uh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you guys to YG. Uh, you're welcome to YG Computer, and most especially, you're welcome to Nuggets at YG. I want to thank you for honoring our invitation. Um, Nuggets, for those of you who are maybe coming here for the first time or who are watching us live for the very first time, Nuggets by YG is simply um, a discussion session where we come together, pick a topic, and we discuss. We share our experiences, we share knowledge that we've gathered over the years, we share some best practices, we ask questions, we clarify doubts, and so on and so forth. And so today, just like the topic said, we're going to be talking manufacturing. And just as I said in the invitation, we have some very exciting people who will be leading the discussion for today. As you already know, usually we have discussions and not presentations. And that's why we have um, the setups not
Okay.
very stage audience like just because we want to ensure that it is a discussion and not a presentation. And that means that we will be repeating that for those of us who are for let's occupy this first seats first. So that we are let us we are going to be some come closer. Right. So um, in the hall today, I think for those of you who are here, you already know who our panelists are good. I don't like calling them panelists. Who the people you already know the people who will be leading the discussion today. Um, Cyril, DC Gevala, this is maybe the third time that he's doing an organization, so it's not a new face. Gevala, winemaker, uh, finance guru, entrepreneur by excellence, etc., etc. A very good friend of mine, so I'm always very happy to share the stage with him. We have Mabrice. Today, Mabrice is joining us for his very first time, and we are honored because Mabrice is the founder of Moreri PLC. This tells you that when you just hear PLC, you know that, you can tell the amount of experience that he has that he's going to be sharing with us today. So, Mabrice has been in manufacturing just for as long as 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. So, I personally am so very excited that we're going to have.
Is it 2019?
Yes, I was forgetting that 2019 fellow as well. So very big, very big people, right? Also, we're going to be having Michelle. Michelle will be participating online. Yes, Michelle is. I'm sure for those who are watching online, you can already see that Michelle is connected. And
Yes.
then Michelle is founder of Tams Industry South. Uh, Michelle also, Tams Industry South also happens to be the
Wow.
sponsors of this very edition of Nuggyts. And I'm sure that along the discussions, we are going to be discovering a little bit of what all of these people are doing and maybe what a lot of them you consume their products and you probably didn't even know about it. So we're going to be discussing a couple of these things. And then last, but definitely not the least, we are also going to be having Dr. Engineer Fabrice of Abule Sustainable Engineering.
Hi guys.
I'm sure a couple of us will know him already. He's a personal brother to me as well, so just like DC. So I'm also very excited that I'm going to be sharing this experience
Hi guys.
with him. Fabrice is a
Yeah, man.
scientist MBA. He's an engineer, a process engineer. He has a PhD in process engineering, and that tells you that he comes with a lot of years of experience with designing systems that work. So he has a lot of experience when it comes to
Pourquoi j'ai du mal à entendre?
industry scale applications of
J'ai du mal à
manufacturing
entendre.
and so much more. And he's also the manager of Abude Foods, which is a company that has been doing food manufacturing both nationally and internationally. I mean, their biggest market, as a matter of fact, is the US market, exports to the US market. So we're going to be discovering all of these great people and the experiences that they have. And the purpose of today's discussion, we said we are talking manufacturing. The purpose of today is just simply to demystify or to break down manufacturing from what many people have held to be a mammoth task that you are scared to even begin, to something that we can look at and say, hey, maybe by the time we leave here today, we can actually go start something that can build up to becoming one of the maybe the Tampicos, the biggest, you can think of the biggest manufacturers, the Choco Camps and so on and so forth, right? So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor over to DC so that continue the facilitation of the session. So once again, you're welcome. And even those of you who are watching online, thank you for joining us. We hope that we're going to have a very engaging session today. And those who are watching online, feel free to comment because we are also going to share your contributions as well as your questions.
La sent vraiment pas.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, James. I'm quite excited to have this conversation. I think it's one among the series of conversations I personally feel we need to have and we will definitely have. I think our economy, our country can only develop if we become producers, if we are able to produce more than, if we are able to produce a lot more than we actually do a lot of importation. I think Cameroon usually imports everything right down to the pig. We are a forest country where we have a lot of forests, but we import basically right down to that thing that we have. And it should be concerning to everyone. It should be concerning. And we are a consumption economy. Consumption means that's where money is. I mean, people have to spend in order to consume. So it is but normal for us to really look at that direction. So I actually felt like it's high time we start having this discussion, we start looking at consumption. China was only developed like that because they were able to turn towards manufacturing internally. It's true they are a lot more technologically advanced, but the very basic which we can do as an agricultural economy is to at least process and add value to the agricultural produce that we have around us, rather than always export raw materials and import finished product. It doesn't at all keep us at the same position. So it is on the basis of that which this discussion is being inspired. And of course, my background is initially accounting, and but right now I'm in full-scale manufacturing. I would say I am a product of experiment, experience, and continuous hard work. I've been into manufacturing for over 5 years now, and I've worked my way, on up the ladder. And I could say from someone I didn't necessarily study manufacturing in school, I could tell there is a whole lot of things we definitely demystify. But once personally I got into it, I realized that these are things which everyone can do. Everybody definitely cooks in their home, right? that's already part of adding value. That's already part of processing. The only difference is we don't understand the fact that, okay, we can actually bring in preserving and packaging, branding, and selling. Again, that's like the only difference. That maybe a whole lot of us who cook, because everybody literally cooks, almost everybody. That's the only difference between the other economies where they have them very much invested in manufacturing. Who knows teaching competition? Everybody probably knows because people. Teaching competition is being produced here in Bamenda, and you would almost everybody uses it in Bamenda. I think there are a lot more people present in the West region and other regions of Cameroon. So you see that there are so many things, there are just so many things around us. From the spices, so here we have an amazing carameled popcorn that we're eating. From the popcorn we farm even in Bambi. And there's a whole lot around us that we can actually process, and it's not necessarily as complex as we think. So I want to think that it's high time we look around us and think of one thing or the other. Even tomato paste, when there's tomato in.
Did you say popcorn with ham in bamboo?
No, I said popcorn is being farmed from bamboo, right?
Bamboo?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yes.
I see.
Okay. Like it's predominantly farmed in bamboo.
Wow.
Okay. So as I was saying, you also have tomatoes. That's also another thing which sometimes you have it in abundance where they come from they're selling tomatoes, like a basket of tomatoes, and things like that. And then it's getting rotten. You can actually process tomato and preserve it in such a way it can stay for 6 months, a year, and use progressively at home. And why not equally commercialize it? You understand? There is pepper. You can, from pepper, in the seasons of abundance of pepper, you can process it to liquid pepper, and then the remains, you process it into powder pepper, and then it is packaged. Like, there is so much value, you can get out of pepper. Like, there's a whole lot. There's a wide range there's just a whole lot. Think of any agricultural product, any agricultural produce around you, from maize to cassava to plantain. Mabrice has already spoken lengthily about plantain. He has a lot of experience on that. Like, just think of anything. Think of anything around you, and there are at least 3 or 4 different ways which that thing can be transformed and value gotten out of it and commercialized. Well, we're going to proceed with the rest of the aspects, and I think those who eventually pick up interest in a particular aspect and want to really follow it through, I think I'm actually available. I've guided a couple of people before. I'm actually available to, guide people into processing, whether it's a word of advice or it's a thing to do. But definitely, you're going to be getting a whole lot within this session. So I think the next thing we should proceed with should be the requirements. What is required to start up a manufacturing company, a manufacturing business, a processing business. And under here, we are going to explore the business requirements. We're going to look at the market needs, and then we are going to look at the legal and documentation aspect. So I would want Dr. Abunde to cue in and discuss on the market needs. Is he on? Yeah.
Fabrice, are you there?
So when we talk about business requirement here, basically what we're trying to look at is what are the things you need to put in place for it to be, because this is something which is also governed by standard. You understand? Sometimes some people cook in a dirty kitchen, but it's okay if you want to do that for yourself as an individual, but if you have to do it and put it out there, there is supposed to be a way you have to go about it. First of all, developing your formula, coming up maybe with your formula, coming up with a process on how you're going to go about it. Also, looking at the hygienic aspect of your product. So that's what we're actually trying to look at on the business requirement here. And I want to also precise that this is an exchange, right? This is an exchange we are basically discussing. And it is for that reason that I invited a couple of people. Edwina is actually a winemaker. She's a food technologist. I mean, she has more educational powers in food manufacturing than I do. So it is also one of the reasons why I invited her. And as I mentioned earlier, she's into wine manufacturing. So what I'm trying to say by this is we're basically going to be having discussions, right? There's a thing or two I know. There's a thing or two that Mabrice knows, and there's more that I know. So we're basically going to be having these exchanges, and then at the end of the day, okay, all right, we have Fabrice. So Fabrice will be discussing about the market needs, business requirement, processes, and things like that.
Okay. Just add also with that, as you said, you present yourself before you continue, because I mean, like the presentation that I did at the beginning, definitely does not do justice for the profile that we have. So we invite you to present yourself properly before you give your contribution. Okay, you're on that, please.
Okay, I'm Fabrice Abunde, that's a process engineer, and so I'm going to be talking a little bit on some requirements that has to do when it comes to manufacturing. Yes, I know the idea of manufacturing can sound a bit mystical to some people, but it's really simple because most of the great manufacturing brands. Hello, can you get me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because most of the great manufacturing brands that you actually see out there, they actually started like cooking pots in our houses, like even from Heineken, from Guinness, and all those brands that you know of. They started from pots in our houses. So, but we must understand that if we want to like get involved in a manufacturing project, it's because we want to commercialize it. It's because we want to feel a need in the market. And just regularly, in the old approach, when people definitely want to get involved in manufacturing, they start from production. And then after that means they set up the production facilities and then hoping to go to marketing and then hoping to make sales at the end. But most of the times, 90% or even more of the time, we realize that when we manufacture something using this approach, we go to the market, there is no market need. Actually, manufacturing businesses don't fail because the manufacturing does not work. It actually fails because there was no market for what we actually produced. In the approach that what are we doing? We rather start from marketing. go to sales before you actually do manufacturing. For example, me that I was doing manufacturing and exporting to the US market. I started from marketing, first of all, securing the market, and then I made sales, got clients who paid before I went for to do the manufacturing. So sometimes I'll hear people who say that, Masa, tomato is spoiled, so we'll give a transformer to tin tomato. The reason for manufacturing should not be that the raw material is getting bad, or the reason for manufacturing should not be that the raw material is available, but should be because there is a need in the market for what you want to manufacture. That's something that is very, very key, because sometimes when you go to the supermarket to buy, you don't buy because the person who processed it was solving a raw material damage problem. You buy because it's feeding into a need. And also, sometimes I always hear some people who say, Masa, this thing is not made in Cameroon, so let's encourage made in Cameroon. We don't buy because we are encouraging manufacturing in Cameroon. We are buying because there is a need in the market that we need to fill. And the first thing you need to do before you involve yourself in a manufacturing project is to, first of all, ensure that what need are you filling in the market? What gap in the market are you filling? Then when you can now when you identify this gap, before you can now go deep into looking at the manufacturing aspects of the process. So this is just something small that I wanted to, first of all, push out, and then we might add more tips as we ride on into the discussion. Thanks.
What I would say in regard to manufacturing is you need to identify the problem that you have. If you don't identify the problem, you'll not be able to come up with any formula at all. So if we first of all identify the problem that we have in the market, or we have in our environment, our community, or even in the quarter, I can see, then we'll be able to get a recipe for our problem, For example, when I graduated from school and I saw that a lot of pineapples were getting bad, and a lot of farmers who cultivated it lost the interest in cultivating, because after farm, since pineapples have a very short shelf life, it doesn't do anything for them. Maybe they'll have to lose it before it gets to the market. Is bad, and the few one in the market takes a long time before it's being purchased. So a lot of the farmers stopped cultivating, and I was like, what can I do? It means that I was able to identify the problem and what can I do to solve this problem. So first of all, before we get into the market with any product, it is, what is the problem? Are there raw materials available, readily available, or can we make it available? Because the pineapples can be, we might say it's limited, but the duration for us to cultivate it is not too long for us to say, okay, I will get into farming, I will start cultivating pineapples, and I will start transforming these pineapples. And if there is a market, a demand, for example, I as a manufacturer, if I start demanding every day 10 trucks, 20 trucks, 30 trucks of pineapples, then most youth and most agriculturers, they are going to get engaged into cultivation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, they're going to get engaged into agriculture and they'll start cultivating. Again, to develop a recipe, you have to consider the science that is behind it. It is not just to take a pineapple, maybe you go through the fermentation and then you are bottling and you are sending it into the market. No, there are a lot of microorganisms, that can be harmful to the health, that we need to consider before developing a recipe. Is it safe? If I do this thing, will I be able? For example, somebody cannot pick a wine and consume it, and the next time the person is in the toilet or the person is hospitalized and all that. It is because we have neglected that there are some other microorganisms that can still be surviving in those things. So we need to consider those things before we develop a recipe for any product that we have to send in the market. So I think that's just what I can say for now.
Right. And I wanted to, before having cues in, why are we talking about recipe? The reason is because you realize that when you cook at home, right?
Yes.
Some days you have maybe more magic, and some days it's less. Some days maybe there's more salt, Some days there's maybe more water, some days there's not. But if you have to do something that has to be commercialized, there has to be standardization.
Yes.
Batch A has to taste the same as batch B, batch C, right up to batch Z. That's what gives identity to your product in addition to branding. So it is first of all important for you to standardize, for you to say, okay, this is that recipe that I want to put out in the market. And as Ejuna mentioned, there's a whole lot involved. First of all, what is the taste? What is that flavor you want people to get? What's the thing you want people to remember when they taste your product, every time they taste your product? And in doing all of that, you have to now consider the science behind the product to also ensure it is safe, because it's something people are going to consume. You can either make people happy, which is your desire, or you can rather do the adverse effect, kill people. You know? So that's actually the difference now with manufacturing and cooking in your house, because with manufacturing you have to standardize. Would you want, maybe Mabrice use me for you?
Okay. Maybe I just wanted to add something with regard to recipe. I want to add that before you come up with any recipe, with any standard product in the market, you have to consider the period, the time, and the climate as well. Because during the rainy season, let's say it is normal that if you are using fruit, plantain, whatever, it will be more watery. And during the dry season, the water in it is less. So if you're developing a recipe for manufacturing, you have to make sure that that recipe can be adjusted, that you can adjust it in order to maintain the standard of the product you're taking to the market. Else, if you produce wine, for example, in the dry season, and there will be no water, that means that the sugar in whatever fruit you are going to use will concentrate. And during the rainy season, there is more water. It means that the sugar in whatever thing you are going to use will be less. So you have to make a formula that you can adjust in order to maintain the standard of your product in the market. If not, you take wine today and tomorrow off. It's not the same. The taste, the flavor, everything will just change automatically. So that's just the little I wanted to add with regard to this.
Yeah. Can I add something?
Fabrice has a comment.
Yeah.
Fabrice is trying to add. Fabrice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that the points you mentioned are very interesting, because most of the times the raw materials into your manufacturing line, they really change, especially if you're dealing in food processing. Even not just with season, but with variety. Getting pineapple from the northwest and pineapple from the southwest, the sugar content, the biochemical composition are purely different. So it's really important that your recipe is adjustable based on the composition of the raw materials that come in. Because if your recipe is static and you just say that, okay, I need to put this quantity of sugar for this kilogram of pineapple, it will you find a lot of variations in your final product. So that adjustability in recipe based on the composition of the inputs into your process is very important. Second thing is that, just to add to what DC said concerning standardization, your batches need to be the same. That means different batches should not come with variations in the final product. Also, recipe is important in scalability. When you're moving from a small scale to a large scale, you can be producing, let's say, 1,000 liters of maybe wine. But when you want to move to that industrial scale, the plan is that someday you would want to move to large scale and produce when the market is growing. If you really don't have that formula at that small scale, then when you scale it up, it becomes complicated. How many times have you ever tried to prepare Aero for maybe a few people in the house, but when it's like an occasion, you try to prepare it in a bigger pot, you realize that it's not coming out. That's because you did not standardize with the fraction, so that if no matter the size of the pot, you can still achieve the same Aero. So just to highlight that, just to add that to the importance of having a recipe and the importance of making your recipe dynamic with respect to the chemical composition of the input materials to your plant? Thank you.
Yes, definitely. I think that when we're talking about producing, it's very important that we ensure that the recipe is right. Just like you said, again, you can be doing, say, juice, and the watermelon or the pineapple you're getting from here is different from. So what I see companies do is, in such a scenario, what they do is when they produce the bottle at the level that this is maybe juice from this area and the bottle that this is juice from this area. So that if somebody wants to buy and somebody says, oh, I prefer the way Bamenda pineapple tastes, the person will look for a bottle that are written Bamenda. And you make sure that, because that's very important, very key to marketing. Otherwise, you find yourself gaining customers today and you're not having these clients come back to work. For example, like my products, the one which we put in the market right now, cocoa tea, to transform. We realize in the process, I realized that cocoa that I get from the southwest, so particular areas in the southwest, do not taste like cocoa I get from the central region. And they have different flavors. And so sometimes when we get to the market, people ask me, okay, why is it different today? Why is it this? And in also formulating the recipe, I think that you must pay attention to your consumers. You must pay attention to what they are saying. Because before you fully go into market, there must be that stage that we're not supposed to miss, the market research and product development phase. If you miss that phase, you realize that you invest so much in producing and not selling. So what I actually did was to actually spend 1 year in just market research. Go to market, working on a formula, getting the feedback. Some people were saying about color that it doesn't look like they were expecting from cocoa. We will not close our ears to what people say. And then what we now did is we had a focus group, ask them questions, because these things are very key to building your product and making your product standard enough to compete in the national market. Remember, you're producing not just for the local market, you're producing for the international market, you're producing for somebody's going to take your product to the case they like it, and then take it to the United States, take it to India, take it to Nigeria, and that's how the market keeps increasing. And that is one thing that I really paid attention to what my clients are saying, what the early adopters were saying concerning our product. Otherwise, you would really produce something and it would not be what you actually want to do. And doing all of this helped me in getting the right formula that I now have that is going to the market, and this was based on feedback I got from my customers. It's very important. You also realize that what you're producing could be an influence to how your product is going to be. For example, if you want to go through fermentation, if you do a 3 days fermentation in Bamenda, you will not get the same result as doing the same 3 days fermentation in Gevala because of yes, exactly. So these are things now. I think this is where the science comes in, where you have to look at all of these things. These are very important because, like I said again, you're not producing just for the home. You're producing to supply to different people. And the world do not really know Cameroon for transformation. They know us for producing the raw material. They buy the raw materials from here, they take there, they produce, and then they bring it up. So I think this is the thing and we can definitely see that we have a formula.
Right. Thank you very much, Mabrice. Before we proceed with the legal and documentation requirements that you need in setting up a manufacturing company with business, I would want us to bring in Michelle to share a brief experience, her brief experience on the manufacturing journey from this.
Ok, bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Bonjour.
Ok, bon déjà merci de m'avoir passé la parole. Je suis Michelle Tamoukou, la fondatrice de Lollipop Cameroun. Bon, il faut savoir que Lollipop Cameroun, c'est une marque de popcorn de saveurs variées et inédites. Bon, l'idée m'est venue juste lors des anniversaires des enfants. J'ai constaté que les parents avaient tendance à offrir un petit paquet de popcorn et distribuer aux enfants à la fin de la cérémonie. Bon, du coup, je me suis dit, j'ai pu observer que c'était juste une seule saveur, c'est-à-dire le popcorn avec le sucre dessus. Bon, j'ai imaginé, pourquoi pas proposer une saveur un peu plus variée, donc, et garder aussi le côté croustillant. Parce que lorsque les popcorn entrent en contact avec le lait, il n'est plus perd sa saveur croustillante là. Donc, j'ai donc commencé avec le test. Et pour commencer avec le test, le premier appareil que j'ai acheté, c'était la balance électrique pour avoir le bon dosage, de telle sorte que le goût que je produis aujourd'hui ne soit pas différent de ce que je vais faire demain. Et pour cela, il faut avoir le grammage exact. Donc, c'est ma première machine que j'ai achetée, la machine électrique là pour le pesage. J'ai effectué plusieurs tests. Figurez-vous que pour avoir cette formule, j'ai fait 6 mois. 6 mois de tests. Chaque fois, il y avait les inconvénients, il y avait les remarques parce qu'ils faisaient déguster à mon entourage. Jusqu'à ce qu'au 6e mois, je trouve la bonne formule. Et là, maintenant, je pense à l'emballage parce que j'ai pu constater que ceux qui vendent dans la rue, c'est uniquement dans les plastiques transparents et tout. Je voulais avoir une identité. Donc, je contacte donc un graphiste, il commence donc à faire une conception. Et j'entre en contact aussi avec Cyril. C'est lui qui me fait part de Alibaba par rapport aux achats. Voilà, donc du coup, je suis passée par Alibaba et tout. Et maintenant, pour ce qui est du sujet même, on a parlé ici le nécessaire pour commencer. Vous avez souligné le souci avec la matière première. Effectivement, lorsque je commence, j'utilise Sosucam, le sucre de Sosucam. Les petits sachets, vu que je commençais avec les petites quantités. L'inconvénient, en fait, les difficultés qu'on rencontre, c'est souvent les pénuries sur le marché. Parfois, tu arrives au marché, tu te rends compte que les paquets de sucre sur sucre ne sont plus disponibles. Tu es obligé d'aller chez le concurrent. Mais lorsque tu vas sur le concurrent et que tu utilises son produit, tu te rends compte que le résultat n'est plus le même. Les gens disent que non, celui-ci n'est plus trop sucré, ce n'est plus, c'est trop sucré. Donc, du coup, ça impacte sur ta matière, sur ton produit fini. Donc, il y a aussi la contrainte du maïs. Je me rends compte que le maïs qu'on retrouve à Mbopi, qui est le plus grand marché du Cameroun, parfois je me rends compte qu'il y a des pénuries. Et j'étais sidérée de constater que le maïs, la pop qu'on utilise au Cameroun, c'est importé de l'Argentine. Bon, je t'ai dit, bon, comment est-ce que le Cameroun n'a pas le maïs 100% camerounais pour popcorn? Et avec maintenant les difficultés, il y a beaucoup d'autres contraintes comme l'inflation. Tu peux arriver aujourd'hui, le sac de 25 kilos te coûte par exemple 24 500. Une semaine après, c'est 25 000. Donc, du coup, ça impacte le prix ça impacte le prix final. Donc, du coup, tu es obligé de supporter cela. Donc, c'est autant de contraintes qu'on rencontre, que ce soit la pénurie, sachant que les matières premières sont importées, que ce soit aussi la pénurie même locale, parce que ceci, comme c'est une entreprise locale, mais parfois, il ne tient pas compte de la disponibilité sur le marché. Quand tu vas sur le concurrent, ce n'est pas la même qualité. Donc, du coup, ça impacte la qualité de ton produit. Voilà, donc, c'est autant de contraintes que j'ai rencontrées par rapport à cela. Mais déjà, le premier point que je voulais mettre l'accent dessus, c'est surtout au niveau par exemple, du maïs. Donc, directement, je suis entré en contact avec les jeunes cultivateurs de l'Ouest. Bon, ils ont pour projet aussi d'avoir les grains de maïs 100% camerounais. Donc, nous sommes en train de travailler dans cette lancée-là. Mais eux aussi rencontrent les difficultés parce que trouver la semence là et cultiver, ils me font comprendre que la terre du Cameroun n'est pas vraiment adaptée pour ce type de graines. Donc, et la contrainte qu'eux également, ils rencontrent au niveau des engrais. Ils ont dit que les engrais qu'ils utilisent, les produits là sont importés également. Donc, voilà autant de contraintes qu'on rencontre dans l'industrie, dans tout ce qui concerne la production. Donc, c'est beaucoup plus au niveau des intrants. Tant que toi, en tant que producteur, tu ne produis pas toi-même ta matière première, tu seras aussi amené à rencontrer les difficultés pour tes matières premières et ça pourra non seulement impacter la qualité de ton produit, mais aussi ton coût de production. Voilà. Donc, c'est en quelque sorte les difficultés que j'ai rencontrées au cours de mon parcours. Merci.
So this is one thing I want to equally just say. Manufacturing or every other business in general is not something you have to rush about. You have to take your time. It's not necessarily there's a lot of value, there's a lot of work to be generated from the manufacturing sector, but it is not a get rich quick scheme. I would emphasize on that. Get rich quick scheme. I understand the pain sometimes Regina has gone through. She would often write me a few times and talk about that. Personally, I've gone through hell and back in the manufacturing sector, but I believe in what I'm doing. I believe that this is what we need. This is the sacrifice we need to put in to generate that value that we're looking for. So, as Michelle rightly said, it took us 6 months to develop her recipe. We're talking about popcorn. Someone would feel like popcorn is something I do in my home, right? But she took her time for that 6 months in constantly testing, getting people's opinion and things like that before finally putting the final product into the market. And that's why good tasted and felt like it's that popcorn which he ate, which was imported from the US. No, it's actually done here. Another thing Michelle mentioned was that she got in contact with a graphic designer, a professional graphic designer who designed the packaging. This is another thing I would want to also mention. She's actually touching a lot of areas in what we're supposed to talk about. A lot of people, I think what a lot of small scale producers in Cameroon miss out is that professional touch in designing their packaging. And they miss it out. They take it for granted. Some people just feel like I can just walk into a documentation and someone who is maybe whose job is to photocopy the documents, type documents, can do me some, just draw anything. But it is important for you to be able to produce something that can compete with what is coming from outside. You need to be able to get to the right professionals to handle different aspects. So for the design, she got to a professional graphic designer to handle the design. And I want to equally mention here that Games Group offer such services to their designing company. So if you are in need of a professional that will handle the designing of your product, their packaging, Games Group can actually handle that. Thank you. We are in their premises.
Okay. Use discount code DC.
Yeah. All right. So, and then to print her packaging, Michelle decided to source. We went to Alibaba. We all know Alibaba, right? The giant Chinese e-commerce platform to source her packaging material. So it's also something I'm going to talk about when we get to the aspect where we're discussing equipment and equipment sourcing. Yeah, but it's a good thing Michelle didn't mention that already. And that's partly because Michelle has been working with me in background for a long time. So So we actually did a training, I think it was in 2021 in Gevala together. And after that training, the training was even in whiskey production. After that training, she kept finding her steps, figuring out which area, and then eventually landed on snacks. As she mentioned why she got into it, and then took her this period to develop it. So you will see that journey is not that linear, And then she did mention a few of her constraints, which one of them was fluctuation in the price of raw material. Sugar is one of the key aspects of her raw material, and sugar at some point really the price of sugar at some point really fluctuates in the market. I use a lot of sugar tools in manufacturing, so I did understand that. So there was equally the sourcing of the popcorn itself, because when you want to do something just to home, different. You can maybe easily get small quantities, but when you want to do large scale, there are a whole lot that you're taking into consideration. Is it of good quality? Is it the right price? When we'll be talking about unit cost production analysis, I'll talk a bit more about this. You have to ensure maybe your raw material is you're getting it at the right price, so you can be able to equally give the finished product at a considerable price to end consumers. So she did mention some of those difficulties, but she's constantly been sourcing, constantly been trying to. I think she did mention how she got in contact with some farmers in the West region to source more. So it is true. I didn't paint 100% of what she said. Let Michelle not be angry, but I mean these are some of the recaps of what's actually said. Okay. Do you have anything to say about?
So this is before, obviously, because we're talking about, or we'll be talking about the popcorn peanut caramel. I think that's the main product she was talking about. And as official sponsor of this particular edition, those of us in the hall have been enjoying. I've been enjoying some of it, and
Mr. Who is on the jet package?
after sending his hands into my own packs. So I think we can all testify that they're really good. And when you look at everything from the branding to everything, is just, I mean, like it's incredible, right? And so it really is what we are trying to discuss, that we can actually do things that stand out and don't look like, like we can actually do. As a matter of fact, we want us to start doing things, especially when it comes to manufacturing, in the way that people will not see them as that this is another one they do have to baptize on. You understand? Like, definitely, we want it to be able to compete at every level, from its taste, from its quality, to its presentation, and so on and so forth. So if someone gets into a supermarket, it's not easy to just tell that this is important, this is not. You understand? That is the aspect of the branding, which I'm sure.
And before we say support your own, let's not push people to want to get crappy products because you just want to emotionally blackmail them into supporting your own. Let them be able to feel that the product is actually of good quality, well presented. And as David said, someone walks into a supermarket, you shouldn't feel like, well, this is done backside. I mean, you should really feel like, okay, this looks exactly like what is being imported.
And so I think from Michelle's presentation as well, there's something Fabrice mentioned earlier, where he said when it comes to manufacturing, it's not about saying, we're not saying get into manufacturing because there's raw materials, because there are tomatoes getting bad also. There should be a need, right? I guess Michelle's journey into manufacturing started from wine or which one? Whiskey?
No, we did a training together, but took time to find our way into this.
Exactly.
We didn't definitely venture into using that, but we kept asking questions over and over. That a few times we brainstorm on ideas and things like that, and then she eventually landed on this.
Perfect. So you see the need, right? That's where the idea came from, the need.
Yeah.
At every birthday party, you will find popcorn. But we need popcorn, right? And how can we ensure that that popcorn is always readily available?
Yeah.
This solves the problem, right? And even gives you a much better version of popcorn. It's not just popcorn, but caramelized popcorn. So I'm sure we're gonna maybe towards the end we'll hear about how we can get these popcorns. We'll hear about how we can order maybe large quantities and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Currently it's not being supplied in Baraka, but anybody who is probably interested in being Michelle's distributor, I did promise her I can link you up directly with Michelle and you guys can talk business from the background. Okay, I think generally you've been able to.
You see, so before we continue, I just want to share some reactions from, just as we've had reactions in here, some reactions from the people who are watching live. The chairman says, or the chairman said, this is right from the beginning. Post-harvest preservation is a very big problem farmers in Cameroon are facing. More people, especially youth, getting into manufacturing is one of the best ways to handle this problem. Yes, Mr. Green also added that I agree with Dr. Abunde. The most successful manufacturers are those who have solved community problems by supplying community need. Yes, so by that standard, we know that Lollipop Cameroon is going very far, right? He also adds that very important input, taking into consideration the geo-environmental conditions of the product you're manufacturing. This brings to mind the importance of having a lab for quality control and testing to ensure product quality is standard. Manufacturers need to add an effective understanding of how climate change affects or can affect their business and be able to adapt to climate shocks to ensure sustainability of their products. They also need to understand how their processes are increasing carbon emissions and find strategies to curb their carbon footprint. Climate change is the new partner in manufacturing business. Chairman came back to add that, or rather, this is a question. So I would like you to note this so that you address this as well.
Yeah.
I wish to request that you guys take us through the process chronologically. That is, after identifying or creating customers' need, what is the way to proceed? Yes. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. I would want to answer Chairman's question at the end, so that will serve as a summary of our entire discussion here.
Perfect.
So what we're going to proceed with is the legal and documentation requirement. All right. I will
Just before you go to that, I want to say something based on the market needs. Sometimes you can actually create a market, even when there's no market. For example, when I started the tea, what I'm doing is cocoa tea, and the price is $2,000. Now, when I started this, people were like, "You're doing this, who's going to buy?" There are different kinds of tea. There are just so many different tea in the market. How are you going to go through this, the price, and everything? Then I told the person, I'm going to put the market. And as it stands right now, we have more people reaching out to get the product, and some people are actually moving away from the different brands that they are used to get into this. So that's one thing you should also do as an entrepreneur. When you get into processing, you must be able to know how to create the problem, even when the cost or your potential clients do not see the problem. Let me take for example. When I started planting flower, this is how I brought customers. I made people to understand, or I brought people more on the health benefits of what this product is. For example, people who suffer with diabetes. I will make posts. I know that I have this people in my contact, so I create the broadcast list, and then I formulate messages that addresses the kind of food you should consume in order to control diabetes. And while I do this, at the end of my message, I'm now put that this product can solve this. Now, the other people who are probably producing the same products are not probably communicating like that. So by the time you communicate, these people now see and they read that, oh, you're trying to help them, you're talking about the problem. And at the end, they realize that, oh, your product can solve their problem. They started calling. People start calling, okay, I want this. I have this guy who suffers from diabetes. The guy will order a cartoon of it for him and his family. So because of the knowledge I shared with them, they stopped consuming dairy, they stopped consuming water. They started calling this. Now when you want to, they're thinking, food swallow that they want to use for food or anything, they would turn to buy plantain flour to use. So you realize that you can actually create a market even when it's not market. Yeah. Now we are, like you said in the start, we are in a consumer economy. It means there's money. It means there's the purchasing power. So if you're putting your price 10,000, don't be afraid that people are not going to buy. People will buy.
That's it. So you just have to ensure you're able to sell the value.
That's his priority to them. Please let them see that 10,000 is worth this. And once they see that, you realize they start getting clients. Gradually, and before you know it, you don't need to do anything. People are already used to your product, people are already getting comfortable with your product. So that's what I want to add to business. Right. So don't just feel like.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Please, I want Pina to briefly say something, and then let's go to the next point. I think at the end of it, please feel free to have your pen and your jotter asks you, or at the end of it, you can have questions and so on.
Okay, so in terms of
before, just to remind that as we have gotten to know the people leading the discussion and what they do, it's also important for us to know. So when you're presenting, just tell us a little bit about it. Maybe just one name on what you do, sir.
Good morning to everybody again. I am Kim, and I'm a doctoral student of Food and Resource Technology at the University of Gevala. And I'm currently carrying out a study on how I can incorporate the pills of coffee into cookies, because I've identified their value and their accumulating such an impact on the environment. So I'm trying to direct that towards health. So in terms of your products and the market need, I would say considering the status or the particular population that you want to target with your product is also important. For example, the product for, is it for babies, is it for diabetics, is it for the elderly? So taking all those things into consideration will help you to know how to formulate a product that meets the needs of these particular people. So that's one of the things that we can also take into consideration when trying to find out what type of product we can venture into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're going to proceed with the legal and documentation requirement. So as I mentioned earlier, manufacturing for sales or manufacturing for the public is not the same with maybe you're cooking at home, because there is legal framework that governs it. So I'm just going to mention the documents you need. So the very first thing you need is we understand that, okay, when you start doing something, it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, if I think of, let me experiment on popcorn, you just want to really start a business already for popcorn, right? Now we want to talk legal and we want to talk about practicability, right? So often you would start small scale manufacturing from your kitchen. Maybe what do? You first of all, like Michelle just said, it took us 6 months to come up with the recipe of our product. So you will not go and register a company and wait 6 months after to get the recipe. We are talking small scale. When you're starting small scale, not going to register a company, wait 6 months after to get a recipe before knowing whether this is the right thing for me to do. Sometimes you have to do trials at home, and then you do those trials, and then you would use maybe immediate family, immediate friends, people in your neighborhood as your test subjects. Maybe I drank a lot of wine from my house, you know. So you would start from there, you would start from your house. I've done so much wine from my kitchen. I mean, for test purposes. I think 2 or 3 weeks, like a month ago, I did it was just 9 bottles. Yes. No, it was 9 liters. So it was about 25 bottles or so. But it was for immediate family and immediate friends. That was for me to test a particular recipe. All right, like back to what I was saying. also you would maybe your kitchen might be that place where you test your recipe or home. Yeah. So when you are already sure of the recipe, that this is actually what I want to do and I want to go with to the market, then you can go and register your company. So you go to the one-stop shop, and it's that the structure that is in charge of registering small businesses. You go to the one-stop shop where you register your company and you have a certificate of incorporation, you have a taxpayer's card, you have exoneration, a document, and attestation to exoneration from business license for the first year, and that's that. And it's really unfortunate that you really have fragmented structures that handle documentation for businesses in Cameroon. And often one structure would not understand all of what is needed by a business person, or maybe someone who gets into manufacturing. You understand? So if you think that you go to one stop shop and say, okay, I want to get into maybe wine production, I want to get into this production, please give me the list of all of the documents I need. You might not actually have it. The structure to who is also in charge, giving you all of this is supposed to be the center for creation, the delegation for small and medium-sized enterprises. It's true they created the one-stop shop is under it, but they also have another unit which is meant to support small businesses. I've forgotten that which is meant to guide small businesses. And this unit still can help you with registering your business. They usually have small services that are meant towards formalizing small businesses that are in the informal sector. So you can equally go towards this unit. I think their current office is behind the one in Pamela is behind Old Town. Behind the Geo's office at Old Town. I've forgotten that unit. Herman, if you can recall that unit, this as the agency for the promotion of small and medium-sized enterprises. That's actually the name of it. So the agency for the promotion of small and medium-sized enterprises, they have as mission to take small businesses that are in the informal sector and bring them to the formal sector. So they have small services, small sponsorship, whatever, which they assist businesses to formalize. So there, I think the most you get is taking you from the informal sector and formalizing you, that's getting your business registered. But that's not all you need as someone who is into manufacturing. You need to eventually certify your product with the agency for Agence de Normes et Régulation, agency for Ano, the name is Ano, A-N-O-R-U. The head office is in Bastos. Rio Campbell. No, Rio Electa. The head office.
Agence des normes et de la qualité.
Yes.
I did not Google that, I just know.
Agence de normes et régulation. But qualité is part of it. Qualité is part of it. So what these people do is, they have a whole procedure. You submit your files to them for your documents or maybe your product to be certified. And it is worth noting that you have to register your company first before you go there. Because one of the documents you need to submit there is your certificate of incorporation, your taxpayer's card, your current pattern, the business license for that current year. So you're submitting it in 2023, you need to have the business license for 2023. So it's worth noting that you must start by registering your company before you think of going to annul. Once you go there, they have a whole set of procedures. It could take sometimes 6 months or sometimes less. They actually certify a wide range of products. I mean, every product, almost every product. So they are certified, and then they have now procedures for different products. So once you reach out to them, they will give you that guidance on how to go about that. You need this is what you need to submit and everything. So I can't say for every single product right now, but what I assure you, when you get to them, they'll give you that guidance. It's the whole process from submitting your file to them paying to your production site, to them collecting samples of your product, analyzing sample pasteur, getting the test analysis, getting the result, to finally giving you that certification. So at a small scale, once you have your certification and then you have your registration all sorted out, you're good, right? You're good. But as I said before, because here I'm going to try to be practical and frank about certain things. As I said before, no one man or no one maybe at the structure almost understands everything. You should have seen cases where please Oceanans have visited as factories, but trust me, they will go there and they will not even understand the documents that are needed. It's a whole different story anyway. This is Cameroon. Certain things I'm going to say them in Kole language, let's just understand. However, these are the basics that you need in operating. Once you have this, you're good. And as you have to scale a bit further and become a bit bigger, you would need attestation d'implantation, which is issued by the Ministry of Mines and Industry. So you submit your files at the Mines and Industry and the Delegation of Mines and Industries. It takes a whole process right up to it being signed in Yaoundé by the minister directly. So you need attestation d'implantation. Then you equally need environmental analysis. Étude environmental, that's in French, étude environmental. That one is being done by the Division of Environment. So there they are analyzing whether do you have byproducts that are toxic to the environment, how do you handle them. I did hear Mr. Green say a contribution about also looking at doing business which is more sustainable to the environment. It's absolutely important. So the Delegation of the Environment will have their own role to equally play. They'll do an etude environmental, which they'll eventually, at the end of the day, give you that document. But as I said, that's at a certain scale now. It's not you, it's, you know, see a petit poisson. So, and then again, this, I'm saying this from experience. The man from the mines and industry will think that his document is superior to maybe an or. The person, comments will think that their own is superior. Because what comments check? They have a brigade called price control brigade. So what they are in charge of doing is they do price control and then they do quality control. So when they go to the company, what they are checking is has your product been certified by ANOR? Because ANOR is a unit which is between, which is created under both commerce and the industry, Ministry of Industry and Mines. So those are the documents that you actually need. In some with some sensitive products, with some particular industries, you will need more documents. If you have to do with if you are dealing in an industry that has to do somehow with health, you have to need some agreement from the Ministry of Health. If you are dealing in an industry that has to do with, for instance, if you are producing cement, there are more agreements that you need from the Ministry of Mines and Industry, because you are exploiting. I think the cement has to do with mining. Then if you're dealing with maybe water, for instance, you equally maybe have some agreements from the Ministry of Water and energy. If you're if you're manufacturing in the sector of maybe producing energy, maybe solar, well, I don't know whether solar would require agreement from the Ministry of Energy, but I think if you were to do hydro, if you were to do a hydro plant or something, you have to get in contact with this ministry. So what I'm saying is you have this general document, but when if maybe what you're producing, the sector you are in is a bit too sensitive and tilted towards a particular ministry, you will have to go closer to that ministry. Now, those are the documents you need. Those are the documents you need in order to operate. As I said, it starts from the smaller scale right up to the bigger scale. Background, you can get in contact with me and I'll give you a lot more details. So, you can watch out with me.
Okay, thank you very much, GC, for those very, very invaluable contributions. They are so helpful. Talking about, he made mention of
Fabrice, just a second, Fabrice, please.
Environmental impact. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yes, I think we are good.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much for those contributions, GC. And then he made mention of some aspect of environmental impact, and then it's in line with what Mr. Ngalim of the Greens also said about climate smart manufacturing. I want to just highlight here that there's a lot of market today. When we're talking about manufacturing, there are two aspects that you can manufacture and sell. You can sell your product, and you can also sell your process. That's the process with which you actually produce the product. That's why the whole issue of recipe standardization is very important, because someone can come to buy your process. There has been a study that was conducted by McKinsey which shows that there are, I think, a lot of customers or clients or the market is being interested in buying from consumers who respect the environment. That means if we have two wine manufacturers, for example, A and B, if A is just concerned about the wine and B brings out the aspect of preserving the environment, then clients prefer to buy from the manufacturer who preserves the environment. So don't look at the environmental impact assessment as just an aspect of just for feeder document and want it and for start. Take it very important. And then secondly, there are a lot of international organizations that want to really fund climate smart manufacturing facility. That means if you show that you respect the climate, and then they are very interested in that. And what do we really mean by being climate smart in your manufacturing process? Is actually reducing the quantity of natural resources that you use, for example, water, reducing the quantity of energy that you use, and then maybe the type of raw materials that you put into your process. So you realize that even when you're climate smart or when you're respecting the climate in your manufacturing operations, you don't only meet the requirements, but you also make your process go lean. Because when your process is lean, you save costs in your manufacturing, and then you can now compete actually in the market. And then also talking about one thing that I also want to, I think there are some points here that I want to also add, but I prefer to bring in this point at the end when we'll be talking about the process going from start to end, the process going from start to end. But talking about packaging, I want to add this to the aspect of packaging. It is true that we really need to focus on branding. It's really key. I won't lie to you, it's really key. But there is a trend that I'm observing now in Cameroon that people just want to package anything. Don't get that statement wrong that packaging is important, but understand that you cannot, no matter how much you package or no matter how beautiful your packaging looks like, if the product itself does not respond to a need, if the product itself does not taste well, then it will not go anywhere. So before, we've had cases here in Douala where we've seen products well packaged with packaging being even imported, and we realize that there's nothing inside. So what I'm trying to say is that before you want to do a beautiful packaging, please, you need to ensure that you do your homework. And that homework is actually the fact that your product in there must be good. And then secondly, a good packaging, you see, we need to be innovative. A good packaging does not mean that it must look like what comes from the Western world. We are in Africa, we're in Cameroon here. We can also do packaging that are looking towards our culture, towards our local populations. Yeah. If biscuit is being packaged in a particular way, if chocolate is being packaged in a particular way, remember that what you are doing, your packaging is actually a reflection of something that you're trying to feel in the mind of the consumer, which means that don't see that biscuit is packaged this way and I have to package my own this way. You need to be innovative in what you want to bring in terms of packaging, innovative, knowing that your packaging needs to align with a particular feeling that you want to give your consumers when they first perceive your product. And remember that you must do your homework to ensure that what you're packaging is even more important. So so at the start, just to summarize, at the start, ensure that the product is really cool. The product is really cool. And when it comes to do packaging as well, please, it's not just about the beauty of the packaging. There are a lot of aspects that come into packaging as well. Some packagings can look beautiful, but they are toxic to your product. And some packagings can look beautiful, but they reduce the shelf life of your product. So when you're factoring in, when you're trying to solve the equation for packaging, don't just look at how beautiful it looks like. You know that you are trying to get a packaging can look beautiful, but the way the material is designed, it reduces the shelf life of your product. And by that, I just simply mean that your product cannot stay in the shelf for a longer period of time. And some packaging can come, it's not very beautiful, but it preserves your product for a longer period of time. And there are a lot of aspects of toxicity that has to do with packaging and all those things. And as GC said, some of these things, you might not realize them at small scale when you're starting. The moment you want to shoot out a little bit, you have all sorts of problems coming on your way and all that. So always ensure that you actually reach out to the right experts that can really help you in making making some of the decisions and some of the aspects that we're mentioning. So I'm going to come in again when we are rounding up and in terms of the process to add some few value. So that's just a small contribution I wanted to make.
All right. Thank you very much, Mabrice. I think he has one of the aspects we actually needed to discuss was packaging and branding, and it's been coming up already. And he has touched really key aspects of packaging. The truth about it is, the layman would think that packaging is just something to carry the product along. But the truth about it is, there is a science behind packaging. Do you realize that popcorn was pop? There's actually nitrogen, and you see several products like that. Do you realize that when you open the packaging, you have a more foil? The inside is coated with foil. You understand? So there's a whole science in packaging. Even with wine, there is a reason why. Have you ever seen beer? I'm not saying maybe a carbonated alcoholic drink, something like what's the name of ice. Ice is not beer; it's a carbonated alcoholic drink. It's an alcoholic drink that's carbonated. Ice and whatever. So all of these things that are colored. Origin, Bosta is not beer. But beer, when they say beer, whether it is maybe stout, it is lager, you would realize that they are never in a clear bottle. It is always either in a green bottle or in a brown bottle. It is not for any reason that it is there. It is the science of preserving that product. Wine, red wine, you will almost never see red wine in a clear bottle, except the person who bought it didn't know what it was doing. But you will always see it either in a green bottle or in a brown bottle. So that, which means it's shielding it from sunlight, direct contact with sunlight. So packaging is a whole science, and I'm really excited that Dr. Abunde doing a lot on that. He has spoken a lot about it. So when you want to package, it doesn't suffice for you to get maybe to the designer to design the beautiful packaging. It doesn't suffice for you to just contact the manufacturer and that I want this. It's also important for you to have specialists to advise you on the form of packaging to see whether the packaging you want to do for your product is appropriate. Will it protect the shelf life of the product? Is it the right form of packaging for the product? There's a whole science behind packaging. Right?
Yeah, Fabrice is trying to come in again.
Yes. No.
Yeah, just a small practical example on. I had a client contact me, like as Carl Riley said, my market is mainly the Western world in the US. I had a client contact me sometime, and then the client was proposing a kind of packaging that he wants the product to be in. So, okay, I think we were trying to do some pre-cooked arrow, the kind of pre-cooked arrow which you could just use it. And then the client was insisting that we should package it in something that looks like the cornflakes. You know how cornflakes is being packaged inside and then has that carton round that is being around. And then, but you see, to the client, the packaging needed to look really good. But it took me a lot of time to convince the client that why do people buy in the Western world? For example, when people come on a shelf and they want to buy African food, this is something that I noticed, they want to buy African food. If you package it to look so Western, there is that fear that the thing was produced in the USA. But they want to see the packaging to feel that it's coming from Africa. People rather like to buy that. So you observe that in that particular market, for example, if you make your packaging to look very beautiful, you are not winning the market. People feel that it's produced inside USA, but the market wants to feel that they are consuming something that comes from Africa, and in their mind, something that comes from Africa has a way it looks like, which is adding another variable to the equation again, that you must understand the target segment. We both can be producing the same product, and because we are selling to two different markets, it influences how our packagings will look like. Don't think that because company A is doing it that way, that's how it must be. So that's one thing I wanted just to add to your point, DC.
Right. I think also another good example when it comes to packaging is what most of these fashion designers have been doing for a while now. If you got an example, or if you take a look at what someone like the one I've seen, someone like Margot's Mode has been doing for some time now, the way she packages her outfits. If you buy, it comes in I think it's a wooden pack or something like that. I haven't seen it in person, but it's online, and it looks really great. Really us, really African, really Cameroonian, and so I think that was just adding to that aspect of when we're trying to do branding, we try to also make it look like us rather than trying to fit into the Western stereotype or
exactly.
It's very important. And to I think one of the key things also that we need to bear in mind is the fact that obviously we are not political, but we basically what we're doing is one, share information, right? So the government of Cameroon is actually doing quite a lot to encourage things that are made in Cameroon. There are a couple of programs, projects that we can look into and take advantage of in order to promote made in Cameroon businesses. which also means that if you are trying to promote your product online, you should also you should remember to use the hashtag made in Cameroon. Yes, I use hashtag made in Cameroon because not only the government, there are also a lot of promoters online who are looking for those hashtags to promote. I can very immediately think of this lady they call Mami Cameroon. It's a blog, very, very popular blog, Mami Cameroon. She doesn't miss out on things she doesn't miss out on sharing. She'll not ask for anything, she'll just share.
Yeah, this is supermarket too I think in Gevala in that exclusively sell meat in Cameroon, so I might have heard about it. I think Carrefour, if I'm not mistaken, Carrefour, this French company, usually is they push a lot of Cameroonian product. All right, Herman, I have to give a contribution. Let's get Herman's contribution.
I just want to remind you guys that there's coffee, and the coffee we serve is Cola Coffee, Cameroon's finest coffee. That's made by NWC, as well, who are down there. So please make sure you taste some of it. I guarantee it's Cameroon's finest coffee. And there are also a lot of small manufacturers who are producing homemade coffee as well. What's the name of the black guy? Is it Bones Coffee? B-O-N-G, Bones Coffee is also another example of people who are doing things that are really good quality.
Yes, when you talk about the documentation aspect, there's one aspect that I don't know if you are still to cultivate, but is that of manufacturing, is that of protecting yourself or your product.
Okay.
Because the world of manufacturing is not a separation.
Yeah.
It's very aggressive.
Yeah.
And most of the times, if you are not smart enough, you start something very good before you realize the competitor just come by with almost the same thing, with the same thing. And it's just the name that changes, and they are killing in the market.
Definitely.
That's where
Intellectual property rights.
comes in.
Okay.
So that's one aspect that you should have in mind when you are actually going forward.
Yes.
I think
OIP, that's the organization that is in charge of registering. So they could register maybe your company name.
Yeah.
They could register your product trademark.
Yeah.
They could register your recipe. They could trademark. They could register a whole lot of that, and it takes a whole process for that to be happening. So if you have a particular recipe and it is trademark, no other person can duplicate it. Yeah, if you have a particular trademark name, just like maybe the Coca-Cola and the rest, those are names that are trademark. You can't come up with your product and bring Coca-Cola just as trademark. So the organization that is in charge of handling, protecting intellectual property is OAPI, OAPI. So you get in contact with that organization, the organization, they will give you the necessary procedures to go about protecting whether your company name, your product brand name, your recipes, and so on. Thank you very much, Herman. I did omit that.
Yes, so key is, like you said, whether it's your company name, brand name, product name also, or even the process.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I say your recipe or process, for example. If you can prove that it is novel, original, never been done before, you created this, it can be copyrighted.
Definitely.
So it's important to do that. I think online as well, the chairman added that triple bottom line accounting is the new normal. That is the 3P: profit, people, planet, right? So environmentalists like Mr. Green are going to like the concept of green accounting. Manufacturers like those of us, or manufacturing hopefuls like us, should also remember, and it's not only with manufacturing, but with anything we do, whether even as individuals, we must keep the planet as one of the key things that we consider. Everything we do should be green. Biggie Ransom adds that I believe finding the balance between culture, identifying branding, and quality packaging. The few Cameroonian packaging I've seen look good, but don't check off many security and safety conditions. What do you think could be done to ensure beauty and safety? So I guess that's another question that is being thrown. The first question was for us to, yes, after identifying or creating customers' need, what is the way to proceed?
Yeah,
I think you've answered that.
We'll answer that with the summary.
Okay. And then, so this other question now, what do you think could be done to ensure beauty and safety? That is striking that balance between culture, identifier branding, and quality packaging. So remind you that all these questions are not only for them. Remember, it's a discussion, right? So please let us all feel free to share.
There's one other thing too that I think is worth noting concerning branding, as you may say, and we are noting that most of our people, when it comes to branding our products, you want to brand to look like that. I'm happy you and Mabrice are talking a lot about not trying to look like that. We will be creative and also be culture centric.
Yeah.
But the challenge is, as you want to begin your manufacturing, we know very well that we live in a community where people are the fancy more important products than products that are made here. So we all fall into that temptation of preferably, and most of us do it consciously, to preferably brand to look like it's coming that way. Because remember I told you about the wine you produce. When I went to somebody's house and he was consuming the wine and was praising it and saying how beautiful it is. But when I told him that that thing is being made here, he took at the bottle and looked at it and said, but eating this will not be fine. So online they already nothing. But he was praising the wine before getting to know that it was produced here. So I think we have to look for a way to help us and also help those who are venturing into manufacturing to be able to produce the product and brand it culture-wise, but make it appetizing.
Yeah.
Because
I think this is the thing.
Yeah.
When we say great packaging, what we're talking about, I mean, you've come across stores which have maybe the African fabric and stuff like that, maybe Togo and so on, but well designed. So what we are saying people should avoid is, don't just walk into a documentation and see someone who is not a professional designer, who will do his cotamela. Because whether you're trying to imitate the European brand, or maybe you're trying to do what is culturally sensitive here, once there is a cotamela on it, it is obvious. You would spot it right there that, okay, this thing doesn't look, that aesthetic is not there.
It's not there, that's true.
But I think people would fall in love more with a brand that, one, they'll see that it's cultural sensitive, yet they'll see that aesthetic in it. It is well thought out, maybe the way everything fits together. Two, you didn't do just some crappy print at some documentation, which colors are overlapping and colors are maybe flowing around. You get, maybe you printed it well. The print looks fine as a print that maybe is coming from somewhere. This is the point we are trying to stress on. We are not trying to necessarily say, let it look like what is being designed from abroad. No, let that aesthetic be there, from maybe the design concept to the print, the production of the packaging itself. Let it look, let that feel, that physical touch, and from the eye, let it look exactly like maybe those ones look beautiful.
I would like to, that is true. I would like to thank you so much for also specifying that the packaging is not about how it looks or how can it help preserve your products too.
Yeah, it's absolutely important.
Because I think up to this moment, I used to think that it's about just making it looking amazing.
there's a whole science. I actually have a video. I have like a scientific video on cans.
Yeah.
These cans which they use in preserving, these cans which they use in packaging. Yes. No, not certain. The one I have is maybe drinks, canned drinks. I have a video, a scientific video on the design of cans. There's a whole science. There's a whole science behind packaging. As I said, a lot of people look it from the surface level, but there's a whole science behind the packaging type. And it is very important that you want to venture into manufacturing, get closer to someone who understands this thing, who is a specialist in this, to look at your packaging design choice.
Right. I also want to make one plea with YG. That is one of the frontliners when it comes to branding too. That if you could help, because most people who venture into manufacturing are actually not educated. Yeah. They are the ones who take the role and the ones to get into. Most of us who are so cautious and the long run we lose it. But those who venture are not educated, and most times their immediate environment, those people too are not conscious of this concept that we are trying to share here. So especially when it comes to design, so I think YG as a frontliner should be able to come up with, let's say, 3 questions that you can share online in such a way that if you want to get a designer to design your product, let that person who has not gone to school, let him be able to ask that designer. If that designer can answer, then you're sure that designer can design something which can fit or compete in the world market. Just like 3 questions. Because I have seen designs that are terrible. I've seen designs to some of my clients who are terrible and I had to contact them. Why? Because people design without knowing color theory, they design without knowing the aspect of fonts. So I think YG is in a better position to come up with just 3 questions that any person can ask. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, I would want to just say one thing.
So, DC, maybe let me just call our attention to the fact that, of course, we can continue talking for the rest of the day. However, because of time, we started at 10:19, which means officially we should be ending in 9 minutes time. So, at that point, we'll officially carry off the live broadcast as well, or maybe not. But officially, we will be done officially in 9 minutes time, and then but we can of course continue discussing up to the end of the day. So I'm just putting that so that you bring in what is pending from the planning program and trash it within this 9 minutes before we continue. Okay. So in that same spirit, the chairman is adding that I wish to add that the Made in Cameroon concept is one of the focus of the National Development Strategy 2020 to 2030. I encourage everyone to read this document so as to align their business strategies with the national strategy. In addition, there is a lot of discussion about import substitution. So young manufacturers should know that there are a lot of opportunities for them. Key, before we proceed, the key thing is that we are trying to say that for us to become manufacturers doesn't have to be something crazy. That's what we are trying, this discussion is trying to make us see. That we can do it, we can start small. Folery can become a very big enterprise, right? Folery can become a very big enterprise. Popcorn, as you've said, lollipop, Michelle and her lollipop, as you can see where they are heading to, right? Moreri has been doing tea, and we see the level where it is, right? DC has been into wine production. We see how it goes, right? I think a little while ago, someone came in here and told me like that. We saw this boss, and it's just like, this is really incredible because I was there when you and DC were discussing this idea, and to see the level where it is right now, I'm so excited about it. And I mean, like, the future is only getting brighter, and it's important that we all are part of this bright future. So whatever little idea you have, do it with the knowledge that it could become something really explosive tomorrow. And whether you're doing a little scale, whether you're doing it to sell in the quarter or you're doing it to supply in school, you're doing peanuts to sell to people and so on and so forth. Do it with the knowledge that this could be a business. Speaking of peanuts, there is this company, Tanti. That's the name, like Tanti. Tanti. That's how the guy started, right? By frying groundnuts and selling, and then chin chin, and so on and so forth. And today we all know what the organization is.
2020, was it 2020 or 2019? Nigeria's front line sponsors were Mini Chin Chin, a company that produces chin chin. They've grown to producing a whole lot of other things like noodles and things like that. But then they were producing chin chin, and they were able to come out with billions to sponsor the show of that nature. So those things should serve as inspiration for us. All right, it's amazing. We've discussed a lot about packaging. Yeah, and as I said, get in contact with the right persons to guide you on this. I would just want to place a cap on compliance, the legal requirements. There's this one last aspect that I want to make mention of. You know, we're in Cameroon, and as I said, I was going to things, reality on paper and reality on the ground. Get close to these people. Let me make mention of them. If you're into production, and then get close to maybe the delegation of comments, meet maybe the chief in charge of price control, price policy control. Introduce your product to them that, okay, this is what I'm doing this way. I need your guidance. I know the chief of brigade for comments for Northwest is an amazing gentleman. He could really guide you on a whole lot. He could give you contacts, whether it's Arno and the rest. He could guide you on a whole lot. I equally know the chief of service for Apple Endo for the Northwest. Chief of service for the small and medium-sized enterprise, Mr. Anthony. He's also an amazing gentleman, and he has so much passion in pushing small businesses to become formal. Get in contact with these people, they will really guide you. Just get in contact with those authorities. Most importantly, if you are producing products which seem to have money, that seems to that people from the distance feel like you're there already. Things like maybe wine, whiskey, like that seems to feel like, okay, you're there already. Get in contact with the authorities, whether it's the gendarmerie bosses, most especially because if you're in a local community, you have maybe a small gendarmerie there, and you have a small police station. Meet those people, meet them and show them your documents, show them their product, give them, let them taste, have that friendship with them, let them know that, okay, you're meeting them because you want to have that contact with them and let them know what you're doing. Okay. So you will decide how you go to meet them. And then you guys exchange contacts and things like that. Know that you're safe. But once you are not, there are so many things that happen on the media that a whole lot of people do not know what's at the background, how it happens at the background. But from my experience, I've been into so many problems, a lot of problems, for my past years of being into manufacturing. But if I can give you one advice, just let these people know you. It's as simple as that. And sometimes even you might not have all of the documents yet, but once these people know that you're operating, maybe the chief of service for comments knows you, and things like, once these people know you, in French they call it encadré. You know, you go to them like, okay, I'm coming to you for encadrement. You know, and that. They taste your product. You will almost never have a problem until when you eventually get all of the papers that you try.
Okay.
Comply and the respect to regulation. There are these people who control the terrain, so yes,
So maybe let's give Fabrice a few minutes so that he can he can share his last word before he times out.
Okay, guys, I want to give some few points on
Fabrice, while he shares his thoughts, if there are any questions for Fabrice, I think this will be the time where we take them as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to give a high level of it because due to time constraint, we cannot really go into the in-depth of how to really get started. But in the nutshell, there are three core things that you need to do in order to run a successful manufacturing business. Like three core tests, and each of those tests, they are more in-depth stuff. First is the test for desirability. Does someone need the product that I want to manufacture? What problem is it particularly solving? Is it probably, for example, saving somebody the time to do something? Is it probably bringing a health benefit? And this desirability is not your personal assumptions. It's things that the market really needs. You might be solving a health problem that the market does not care about. So test for desirability simply answers the question that, does somebody face the problem that my product is going to solve, and is the person willing to pay money to have that problem solved? Because sometimes we have a problem and we are not willing to pay money to have the problem solved. That's the test for desirability. The second thing is the test for feasibility. What I want to manufacture, is it feasible to quickly put up something at small scale? We like to always start small. Is it feasible to quickly put up something at small scale that can get up to the quality standards required by the norms as well as required by the target customer? And remember, at the start, don't manufacture for everyone. The more specific you are at the start, the higher your chances of succeeding. If you try to build a product for everyone, then you end up making your manufacturing process so complicated from the start, making your recipe so complicated from the start because you want to solve maybe for diabetic patients, you want to solve maybe for everyone, and you cannot fit into the needs of everyone at the same time. So this answers the test for feasibility. The third thing is you can have something that is desirable in the market, and you can have something that is feasible to do at small scale, but is it viable? Does the unit economics make sense? So that brings us to the third test, which is the test for viability. So the test for desirability, test for feasibility, and the test for viability, the intersection between these three tests, that's where you should fit in your manufacturing. Now, so there is a more in-depth process, and I'm just going to, for those of you who are interested, for Nuggyts to organize another session again where we can go in depth, but focusing on how to start and scale a manufacturing business, like everything you need from the entire process, what aspects you should consider in your branding, the recipe, the market validation, the packaging, and then the sales and marketing funnel. If you want to see that entire process, and if you really need a deep follow-up, more like a deep follow-up to really start and all these aspects done for you, then you can leave your information with Nuggyts, and we might consider organizing another show again where we're going to go deep into these aspects. And those who really want to get things started, who really want to get their manufacturing business going, like what DC is doing, like, because we'll be sharing real-life experiences, like in-depth real-life experiences, and then creating our availability to really help you start. And then keep your contact with Carl, and then first with Nuggyts, so that or indicate, so that we're going to organize that 1 hour session, which is just going to be like the entire process from start to end, and then probably give you what it would take for you to, if you really want to have that close follow-up from start till you get your manufacturing business going, because with talking also you really need to really get that close follow-up. So if you want this thing, then you can just indicate your contact, and just remember that to get things started you need 3 tests: the test for desirability, the test for feasibility, and the test for viability. The intersection between these 3 tests is what I call the manufacturing sweet spot, where you have to locate your manufacturing. So if there are any questions, I'm going to take them, and if there are no questions, then I'm going to say thank you for joining.
All right, that's incredible. I'm sure that I think I don't know if anyone else is as excited as I am about what Fabrice said, because he's definitely pitched a follow-up session to this, which is, like you said, how to start and scale a successful manufacturing company. That is a possible follow-up to this, and I think we are definitely going to be exploring this opportunity. I mean, like this is some these are discussions. The discussions we are having today. If you go to, for example, if you go to Abundisec and you check out the pricing of each of the sessions that they deliver, you will really see what value that you're getting today. So for him to still even suggest that we can have a nugget session, you can come back for another nugget session, is really incredible. And just to say that we are going to share the contacts of everyone who has talked today. So how can you get Moreri's products, for example, and how can you learn more about everything they're doing? Get in touch with them in order to maybe network, or just to even network, even if it's not to learn or partner. Obviously, DC's contact is going to be shared as well. Fabrice's contact, as well as Michelle's information. All of these will be shared so that we can make use of this opportunity. Because, like we said, the purpose of these sessions is actually inspire us to action. So it will not help if we leave and do nothing with this knowledge. Yes. So I don't know if there's any question for Fabrice. Any question? Okay. In the absence of any question, then we'll say thank you very much, Fabrice. Thank you for honoring the invitation to be here. I know you have to step out, so we are going to tell you our goodbyes now while we continue. Yeah, so we have been honored by our.
Okay, thanks.
We look forward to having more sessions with you. Hopefully.
Thank you very much, guys, and I wish you all a nice day. Yeah, sure.
Right. Thank you very much, Pat.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Goodbye.
All right. Okay. So because of time constraint, I think we will handle one last aspect, which is the financial management. And also because the discussion and the exchanges did touch aspect of prototyping, that's starting small while looking at the big vision. So we did touch aspects of those, so we're going to leave it out. And then, of course, we did touch a little bit of aspect of scaling, sourcing of raw materials coming out of the production system. But of course, those are things which we take in depth in actually looking at the bigger aspect of it. But now I just feel that maybe to round it up, we're going to look at the financial management aspect of manufacturing company. Here we are looking at 3 key things. We're looking at unit cost of production, coming up with your unit cost of production, pricing, and cash flow management. These are the 3 aspects we're going to be looking at with respect to the financial management here. So we'll start with the very first aspect, which is unit cost of production. The reason why we felt that it was important for us to discuss the aspect of unit cost of production is because a lot of people will start up manufacturing companies which they are originally not having an accounting background. And of course, they don't have that need to employ an accountant from that start. But it doesn't mean that they will have to ignore the financial aspects of their businesses. Because if you ignore that financial aspect, it has so much adverse effects on your business. If you can check out maybe your cost of production, you definitely would not be able to sell at a competitive price and maybe make considerable margin to permit you survive. Again, if you can produce at the right cost, you will not be able to sell at a competitive price and you will not be able to survive. So these financial aspects are equally important for a small scale manufacturer to look at, irrespective of the fact that they are small and maybe they can hire accountants here. I've had several sessions with other manufacturers before, small scale manufacturers before, where we were able to, in fact, Excel is my friend, it's true. My background is accounting, it makes it easier for me. But your cost of production analysis is something everyone must do. You must be able to say these are the direct materials that I spend on. Maybe if you are into the production of popcorn, like what we have from Michelle, you have to look at the cost of buying the popcorn. You have to look at the cost of the sugar. Yeah. Then now, those are direct inputs. You equally have to look at something which a lot of manufacturers make the overhead costs, the indirect costs. Things like maybe the lighting, the heating, maybe because you use it for your personal use at the same time, you neglect those aspects of it. But all of those have to be incorporated to be able to determine the cost of production for the product. They will equally ignore stuff like carriage. Carriage inward, carriage outward. That's, I'm talking about transport. Carriage inward is transportation of raw materials. You went to the market to buy maybe a bag of popcorn for maybe 30,000 and you spend maybe 1.5 to transport yourself as well as transport that back to the house or maybe to your production site. So your total cost of purchase for that raw material is not 30,000, but it's 31,500. A lot of people will ignore that 1,500, but that's an indirect cost to your manufacturing. You have several other expenses like telephone bills. You have to reach out to suppliers and things like that. You call them every now and then. A lot of people will ignore that cost because, well, I did put credit on my phone for my personal use, so maybe I'm using it for me. Then that's an indirect cost element that has to be incorporated in determining the cost of production. If you don't do this now, you feel like you're making profits when you're not. But when you want to scale, you will crash. When you want to scale, you will crash. So I don't know if Mabrice could say something about analyzing the cost of production to determine the unit cost of the product.
Yeah, this is really key to any business if you intend to grow. Because let me take for example, I was discussing earlier, I was talking about reducing traffic flow. And I said also that I'm pivoting because, like I said, I do not have a financial background, and also getting one or getting to work with people also becomes really expensive. And trying to grow as a startup is not really some kind of expenditure you want to get involved with, but it's really necessary. So I did not really pay attention to accounting in that aspect. And only 6 months later, I actually realized that in each production I make when I go to market, I actually lost 5,000 francs per kilogram. Because I did not pay attention, right? I realized because when I finish producing and I sell, I realized I don't have enough money at hand to do the next production. So production rather, instead of increasing, it's actually reducing to the point where I should no longer produce. And the truth is sometimes you want to feel like, oh, these people go me and I don't know, but it's because you're not diligent, because you're not paying attention. You need to put every point down. When you go to the market, how much did you pay to go to the market?
like I said, credit, all of those things, you must put them down, put the general cost, put your sale, and then you can now deduce how much you actually cost. Like now, at this particular car, I know exactly how much I spend per car. So I know that, okay, if we put in all lights and everything, with all of this is how much I spend. So I will never spend above how much I'm supposed to sell. That way you keep your business going. Otherwise, your business is going to crash. You feel like you're doing business, you're excited about the whole thing, you're not paying attention. Again, another thing for knowing this is you would, because as a startup, the intention is to grow.
Yes.
And to grow, someone said, you want to do something great. You already know you're doing great when you need more people to join you. Now it comes to the point where you need more people to join you, and you cannot give accounts.
Exactly.
You cannot give accounts. So there's a certain amount of money that we apply for to some persons, and they ask us, okay, we want this account for this thing that you're doing. You know, again, I know all of the cost and everything, but because I did not employ someone to do accounting, it has gotten to the point where the process has to be paid for. It's going like 5 days now. Right? Now, these are people in the US. They don't do business like us in Cameroon. Us in Cameroon, we just believe that, okay, it's my personal money, I'm just going to spend, I'm not paying attention to. But it's really important. You must pay attention to all the expenditure you're making, to the money that is coming in, even to the debts that you're owing for that business. Because somebody don't want to invest in a business where they give the capital and before tomorrow you do not have capital. Why? Police came and arrested because somebody like was talking. If you do not know some of these people, like was saying in the previous round, you realize that somebody will feel like you're now making so much money what you're doing, and they go behind and they tell this policeman, okay, this guy is making money, he's going in money, and they just come and arrest you and they do litigation, you must pay the money. Now you're using your capital to settle something which is not going to improve your business growth.
Yeah, so these numbers are absolutely important, and even with scaling, I mean, most of us probably do economics in secondary school. I want to talk about high school, secondary school. I think there was this aspect of economies of scale that when you have to produce large, the unit cost of production has to reduce. And how does this practically apply? It only practically apply when you are able to understand your cost structure and say, okay, if I was buying maize, well, we're actually using Michelle's popcorn as example today. If I was buying maize in buckets, maybe bucket is 5,000. I realized that, okay, you know what, for me to grow this thing, maybe I need to maybe try to reduce this element of cost on my this thing, in my cost structure, say reduce the cost of maize. You now ask yourself the question, if I buy now maize in a bag, how much will you reduce? Maybe a bucket will now reduce down to 3,000 instead of the 5,000 you bought for before. But you can only make these decisions when you understand your cost structure. If you don't understand your cost structure, you will not be inspired to take advantage of economies of scale. Then again, when you understand your cost structure, you understand whether there are particular things that you substitute. Should I use firewood in heating or should I use gas in heating? You understand? Maybe I spend more on gas, but if I use firewood, my heating expense will be less and a lot more. But you can only understand these things when you have a clear picture of your cost structure. And there's no way you can scale without having a clear picture of your cost structure. You will crash. It's more likely for a manufacturing company to crash than a service business because it's complicated. Yes, it's complicated like that. All right, I'll go to the next thing, which is pricing, which is directly tied to maybe the cost structure. If I want maybe a 50% gross margin on my production, I know that, okay, if I'm selling, maybe Michelle sells a pack of popcorn for 300 francs. if I want to sell for 300 pounds and I want a 50% gross margin, it means my cost of production has to be 150. I have to ensure it's not above that. Then, from the gross margin now, you see now that you have to understand your cost structure for you to know how to price your product. Now, that's one aspect of pricing. Your pricing being inspired by your cost structure. Another thing that will inspire your pricing will be the affordability of the people you're selling to. It doesn't suffice that the product is good, right? You have to be able to ask yourself this question: can these people afford? That's why you have different segments in the market. Maybe you have people who are down there. You have maybe the middle income. You have maybe the high earners. So, depending on who you are targeting, if you are targeting the people down there, as I say, if you're targeting the people down there, you have to be sure that these people can afford. If you are targeting very high income earners, then well, their elasticity is a lot, more elastic. So, what it would inspire your pricing would be the affordability of your target market, and therefore, another thing which, of course, would inspire the pricing of your product would be competitive prices of your competitors, those who are doing the same thing that you're doing. There should be some equilibrium. That's why you realize that MTN sells maybe a minute at this price. Look at Orange; they are not far-fetched. They either a little bit less, or a little. They definitely have to draw the inspiration for their pricing from their competitors. So these are some of the three aspects that you have to look at when giving your pricing. Your cost structure, thinking about the desired gross margin you want to make, how affordable the affordability of your product from the target market you're targeting, and then prices of competitive products. So I don't know if someone has something to ask you. What should guide you or inspire you in setting prices for your product? Because this is the thing, what they mistake a lot. The reason why I brought this is they mistake a lot of startups in luxury making in Cameroon. They'll do something crap and put a very exorbitant price on it, and do not take the time to sell the value, because everything is about exchange of value. All right, if I'm buying something for 10,000, I need to be convinced in my soul that this is the value I'm getting. Mabrice did stress a lot on the aspect of value, how you would ensure that your client knows that this is the value you're getting. It's absolutely important. So a lot of Cameroonians will start up as we generally just start producing something and then put in the market and put some really, really exorbitant price on them, and then start appealing people on support your own. But it is business. It is the science of business. There's a way it has to go about it. You have to be able to put a certain price tag. You should be able to, sell the value that accompanies that price tag and things like that. You should be able to answer questions as to, can the people I want to sell to afford this and things like that. So I don't know if any other person has an aspect to add on what should inspire you in a certain price.
I wish to add that we also have to consider pricing, which is the quantity of the product that we want to price. Sometimes the product can, for example, this popcorn is in this pack and it's 200 francs. So if you want to get a larger package, you're going to increase the price. And if you're penetrating the market and you discover that the community that you are, or the environment that you are, the people living in that environment are middle class, or some are really poor. So you have made a product like this popcorn and you set your price at 300 francs. You just have to observe the market and see if they are picking it. People can love it, but they cannot afford. You begin to think of, let me reduce the package and then the quantity inside in order to bring down the price so that it can penetrate the market.
Exactly. So it's actually usually a whole process. That's why you don't just get up and then you produce, attribute the price tag, and then you go and start massively distributing. There's a whole process with testing and validating your recipe, testing, pricing, adjusting, and things like that. It's really a whole process that you need to take. And ensuring that, okay, if you want to push this out there fully, I have all of the numbers, I have all of the data to validate why I am pushing it at this price. Thank you very much, Edwina. I would now want us to discuss the very last thing, which is cash flow. What runs a human body is blood, and what runs a business, especially a manufacturing business, is cash flow. The moment you are cash dry, that's the end of it for you. You will be bankrupt. So it's absolutely important to understand your cash flow, understand the cash needs of the business, and then ensure that you manage the cash flow in such a way there's always cash available to acquire a raw material or to pay for a particular expense when it comes up. The moment you don't manage that cash flow properly, that is capital reason for your business to be shut down. All right, I would want to end it here, and maybe we'll give 2 minutes to get any question that maybe answer any. I think Chairman's question was really answered by Dr. Abudi. Yes.
So, okay, but before we continue, how much will you pay to heal? How much will you pay to help a loved one heal? Gender-based violence is real, and that is why our very own Mutani created the Bruises Poetry EP and ebook. So, I'm sure most of us here know Mutani, spoken word artist extraordinaire,
par excellence.
Award-winning spoken word artist, poet, speaker, MC, etc., etc. He recently released the Bruises EP, which is targeting gender-based violence. I would let him say a little bit about that EP so that we can all go check it out. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon once more. As he said, the idea about Bruises is that we are all very quick to either blame the perpetrator for gender-based violence or the victim for gender-based violence. But what this EP is trying to do is to make us understand that we are all victims of gender-based violence, and we are also all perpetrators of gender-based violence. How do we do this? The EP tries to look at gender-based violence from its origin. So once you're in a home, a father and a mother and kids, research shows that children learn more than 50% from what they see, what they hear, and what they watch others do. So if a child has ever seen maybe a parent or even a neighbor producing gender-based violence, that is registered in their mind. And whether a boy or a girl, so long as they see that, it's registered in their mind and is looking for the right circumstance for it to manifest. And it goes further to express the fact that once there is violence in the house between the mother and the father, the male child reads it differently, the female reads it differently. Once there is that violence, most times children interpret everything that happens in the home because they believe in the love of the parents. They interpret most of the things that happens in the house as an expression of love. And if they grow up and they don't get to be exposed to something different, they feel like the best way to express love is how I saw it being expressed in the house while I was growing, which was violent. Then another aspect of it is that in a case where there is separation, the mother usually looks at the boy child and is seeing the father, and is trying to vent out her anger on the child. And the child being as young as he is, still interprets that as love.
and sees that, okay, that's the best way to show love, by being violent on others. Same with the father who looks at the girl child and sees the mother and maybe will do verbal violence or will do physical violence on the girl, and the girl might interpret it as love or might end up hating the other gender. So this is what this EP is trying to exploiting or looking at gender-based violence from the origin. And also going back to look at gender-based violence from that perspective where when someone is a victim of gender-based violence, for example, I take rape, which is a case of gender-based violence, especially when rape occurs. In most cases, especially when a female is being raped, because there is males who are being raped, the first people to always criticize or condemn that victim, especially a female, is her fellow female. And why do they condemn them? They always condemn them giving reasons why the act was meted out to them. And one of the reasons might be where they met, or the way she dresses, or the way she walks, and all that. So this EP is just simply there to make us understand that there is no good reason for doing a bad thing. There is no good reason. No good reason. And also to let especially the female gender to understand that when your fellow female is being raped, before you start addressing her based on the situation or her dressing or her lifestyle, you should first of all be able to condemn what was done to her by the perpetrator. Because especially mothers, they will say, why don't you kill you? Because we want to say dress, we will dress. And that giving more power to the perpetrator. Then he also goes further now to look at the truth about it is, if you want to help someone, you must go down to their level. If you want to help anybody, you must go down to their level of thinking to find out how do they think, so that you can help them to think better. So the EP goes ahead to look at gender-based violence from the point of the perpetrator. What is the perpetrator thinking when they are carrying out that act? Where did they grow up? And why are they doing this? So in the EP, you have the voice of the perpetrator trying to express all sorts of reasons, but we have said there is no reason for doing the wrong thing, but we want to understand the mind of the perpetrator and get to understand why they do what they do. And that is why some tracks in the EP, it's the perpetrator trying to express his or herself, giving the reasons, and also giving I say suggestions on how you can help them as a perpetrator. Because sometimes the solution must not come from within, it always comes from, it must not come from without. It has to come from within. So the perpetrator goes ahead to give solutions that he or she thinks that you can do to help them stop perpetrating this act. So it's a collection of basically 5 poems, and written by my personal coach and trainer, Coach Lanjo, myself, and some of my Mabrice. She's an interpreter in Cameroon, but she's based in Senegal for now. And then, okay, thank you. Then, and then we have some other poets who had to join in to amplify the voices, to amplify the sensitization of gender-based violence and also to give solutions. Then we also had artists, musical artists like Afro-spiritual gospel artists, Italians, and Gevala, who came in to amplify and make it more entertaining and more soothing to the ears. So the EP is available on inowdigital.com, where you can purchase mobile visa cards, and it's also available worldwide on bandcamp.com. And also you can get it by calling the number 695-614-947. 695-614-947. For those who are not Texan, you can call that number or write on WhatsApp or Telegram, and you will have it sent to the EP and the ebook, and also the t-shirts if you want them. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Danny. Amazing body of work. All right, I think we have come to the end. It's a bit unfortunate that there was just so much. But at the same time, I'm convinced so much has been given. And I would want to say here that this is not the end of it. Dr. Fabrice already mentioned the follow-up, and we are just inspiring people to really who are interested in getting on with manufacturing. At the background, we can, discuss, offer one or two personal assistants and things like that. Right then.
Okay, so thank you, DC, thank you, Mabrice. Thank you, Fabrice and Michelle for the rich contributions. Thank you, Nina, Mutani, Chino. Thank you, Herman. Thank you, Herman. Contributions. Thank you. Please. Thank you, Promise. And Mr. Boone. For all your contributions. Questions, delicious popcorn from Lollipops. Thank you, DD, Chairman, Elvis, Chuka, General, Claire, Kelly, so many other people. So thank you guys so much for your thoughts. Like I said from the beginning, the purpose of this was simply for us. Manufacturing doesn't have to be something something that we can see even tomorrow. Those of us who are not starting tomorrow. What is important? Is having the right guidance, having the right mind. I hope that today we talk about something that is or at least if you feel that it's not everybody needed or the essential that you need, at least you know where so that you can ask. I'm also sorry for the time that we asked. Like Daniel like the preacher man said, I could write shorter sermons, but once I start, I get too so usually happens sometimes when you have a lot of knowledge to share. You can spend the way. I'm sorry, but you have to cut. We are not setting anyone up. It's to be so discussions, continual questions, and so on and so forth. We will walk in and continue. But then we will have to officially record the next session. For those of you who are not about the WhatsApp, please make sure that you have information like when the next session is coming. We hold Nuggyts every Friday. If we don't just at the same time, the principal every 2 weeks will have a session. As we said earlier, as we said, we about discussing, which means if there's something that you like us to discuss, there's something you like to share about it, then you actually give us session and have you discussions. Key discussions. Really so I'm hoping that as our community continues to grow, as the Northeast community continues to grow, we will even have more and more sessions. We will even have emergency so we have DC, we have Mabrice, who share with us. You share so that my social media platforms, how you can contact or how you can take advantage of products so as they service. This is the same. And then you also encourage that each of the people who wants somewhere. Yes, that's the word. So without that, we share a good to put this in this like it's very it's not kind of person who can it's just because of time. Everybody is actually going to prepare but because of time we will all just enjoy it. So if you find these things in the time trust me. So thank you guys very much. This coffee.